What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Collector of Stuff. Monty here. Glad you guys could join me today because I want to talk about my DVD collection. In previous videos, if you'll scroll back and look through my entire collection overview, I did a video on my westerns, and today I want to talk about my top 5 favorite western movies. That's right, it's so hard to narrow down. I mean, who doesn't love a good western, right? You've got your John Wayne and your Clint Eastwood movies. You've got of course, Shane. Everybody loves that one. You know, so many great stars and great movies, classic movies. So, with great hesitancy, I'm going to reveal to you today my top 5 list with a couple of honorable mentions that were hard for me to leave out. But I had to narrow it to 5. I'm going to limit myself to 5 in all of the various genres and categories that I do in this series of videos. If I did like 10, I could go on, and I'd probably still have in some categories a very hard time limiting to 10, but I just want to keep it as short as possible. So we're going to do a top 5 favorite westerns. Now, these are just subjective, my personal favorites. Okay, this is not. These are the 5 best of all time because that's a very subjective thing. My favorite 5 are not going to be your favorite 5. Maybe there'll be one in my 5 that you would agree with, you know. And obviously, I'm going to mention 2 as an honorable mention because I really could easily put them in the top 5 favorites. But there's probably another half a dozen or so that I'd definitely put in my top 10 if I made it a top 10 list. So, starting off with honorable mention, we have the first Young Guns movie, which some have referred to as the Brat Pack Western, starring Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, Charlie Sheen, and a whole big cast as well. Fun movie, lots of action, and yes, it definitely has a younger flavor feel. It's all about Billy the Kid and his exploits along with his gang, all of that stuff. Fun movie. There's some great moments, some great scenes in this video as well. Also, honorable mention, I had to throw a John Wayne. I don't actually have a John Wayne in my top 5. It was very hard to do a Western discussion or discussion on Westerns without having a John Wayne movie in the top 5. You know, so I'm giving him an honorable mention, which would probably be my favorite John Wayne movie, and that is The Cowboys. I really like this movie a lot. It, of course, starring John Wayne, Roscoe Lee Brown, Bruce Dern plays the bad guy, the villain, and which Carradine? I can never remember. The one that was in all the Revenge of the Nerd movies. Is it David Carradine? No, not David Carradine. God, there's so many Carradines, I can't remember. The Carradine that was in the Revenge of the Nerds movies, anyway. As a young boy in this, in which John Wayne is attempting to herd cattle across country and hires a group of young boys, most of them barely into their teens, to help as his assistants. And then they come across some cattle thieves led by Bruce Dern, and actually has an ending that would quite surprise you if you are not familiar with this movie, but you're familiar with John Wayne movies. So, yes, Cowboys, those are my honorable mentions. Alright, now for the top 5 favorites. Here we go. We're going to count down from 5 to 1. Drum roll, please. Alright, number 5 favorite Western movie of all time. The Magnificent Seven. What a fantastic movie this is. Of course, it is sort of a retelling of the Seven Samurai story, a movie, which is very famous as well. Magnificent Seven, just love this movie. Of course, you have Yul Brynner, who's just a bad, you know what? Yeah, he's just so cool in this movie. I just love Yul Brynner in this, and Steve McQueen as well. Of course, if you're not familiar with the movie, it has a big cast. Robert Vaughn, Eli Wallach, Charles Bronson, James Coburn, as well as Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner. Just absolutely love this. These guys are kind of hired assassins, they just come from various walks, but they bond together to go, and they're paid to go and defend this little, I believe it's in Mexico. It's been a few years, yeah, Mexican village. It's been a couple of years since I've seen this, so some of the details were slipping my mind. Paid to defend a Mexican village. Yeah, just a great movie. I love this. The score, the theme to Magnificent Seven is one of those that will actually make you want to get on a horse and ride somewhere. Doesn't matter where, but you will just want to get on a horse when you listen to the theme music to the Magnificent Seven. Just get on a horse and ride. Doesn't matter where. Just do it. Get on a horse and go now. Listen to this. Put it on your iPod and just get on a horse and go. Magnificent Seven comes in at number 5. Number 4, Robert Duvall, Kevin Costner, and Annette Bening in Open Range. It's kind of a long movie. And it's not the best or the greatest Western story in the world. But the reason that it comes in at number 4 is, first and foremost, the cinematography. This is just a breathtaking movie to watch. There's just so many scenes of wide open fields and mountains, and yeah, there's a beautiful shot in this movie which I would be willing to bet any amount of money that was just coincidence and luck, but it's there's a little dog sitting in the middle of a little hill of wildflowers. And the camera just kind of cuts to the dog just sitting there, looking at the butterflies and feeling the breeze on his face in the middle of these wildflowers as they blow. And it's just a beautiful image. It's just a beautiful shot. It has nothing to do with the story. And I'm sure it was just one of those where the cameraman just happened to look and see it and just went, let's get that real quick, and did. And it's just an example of the beautiful cinematography to this movie. It has a great ending. Again, a movie about herding cattle across country, which was their business and their job, and so you always ran across cattle rustlers who were always wanting to take the herd away. Fun movie. All 3 characters, Costner, Duvall, Annette Bening, all played their roles very well. And just grade A acting. Fun movie. Like I said, not the world's greatest story, but it's a good story. But not, what gets this a 4th place rating for me is largely the cinematography. It's just a beautiful movie to watch. Just look at the landscape throughout the movie. Just look at the shots and all that stuff. It's just fun, people. Coming in at number 3, Academy Award winner for Best Picture, I am talking about Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven. Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, Richard Harris. Great movie. Soundtrack or theme song written by Clint Eastwood himself, who is a pretty darn good musician, if you weren't familiar with that, as well as a great actor and director. The story of a retired gunslinger, assassin, who's trying to make his living now at farming. His wife has passed on due to the plague. He's raising 2 small children. He's dirt poor. He's trying to be a pig farmer. The pigs are dying because of disease. all that good stuff. And he gets word of a group of prostitutes who have raised money to hire someone to come and kill a cowboy who beat up and cut up one of their own unnecessarily and foolishly. And they want revenge, and so they're willing to pay a hired hand to come in. And Clint Eastwood gets his buddy Morgan Freeman, who's also a retired bad guy, I guess, killer, and they come up against Gene Hackman, who is the sheriff of this town. And you could interpret Gene Hackman's character to be a tad bit on the corrupt side, maybe. He definitely has a dark side. In fact, everybody in this movie has a dark side, which is sort of the theme underlying, is there's no clear cut who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. You know, you kind of want to pull for Clint Eastwood's character. At the same time, he's a killer, and he's going to kill again for money. That's what he's going to do. So every character has likable traits and dislikable traits to me. And that's part of the charm of this movie. But it is a great story. It's well acted, well crafted together. Some very memorable scenes in it as well, especially when I don't want to give away the plot if you haven't seen it, but I was going to say one of these stars is killed and left lying in a coffin at nighttime in the streets. Just a powerful scene to me. Always liked that. So Unforgiven comes in at number 3. Now we are at number 2. What are my top 2 favorite westerns of all time? Well, at number 2 we're going to go with Clint Eastwood again. I love a good Clint Eastwood western. Not one that you probably would imagine, though. There's been a lot of those good spaghetti westerns that are very popular. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Fistful of Dollars, and what's the one that I like so much? The one where they paint the town red. He's the man with no name. It'll come to me in a minute, but that's not in my top 5 list. What is in my top 5 list at number 2? The Outlaw Josey Wales. I have loved this movie for about nearly 40 years. Came out in 1976, I believe. Fantastic movie, set just post-Civil War era. And there was a group of Confederate soldiers who were known as the Redlegs, who kind of took it upon themselves to go back into the South and hunt for anybody that might remotely be considered still rebellious, even though the North had won and the Civil War. And they kind of took it upon themselves to make sure they cleaned up shop. And anyway, at the beginning of the movie, Josey Wales' family are murdered by these Redlegs. He joins another group of outlaws from the Confederate side who are still waging war, even though the Civil War is technically over. And then he ends up on his own and is being chased down by these Redlegs. And the story is basically his escape, along with all of the people that he meets who just sort of seem to hook up with him. And instead of being an outlaw on his own, he now has this band of misfits who are following him. And and you again see the good side and the bad side, the dark side, the light side of the main character, the outlaw Josey Wales. Again, fantastic soundtrack. I absolutely love the theme music to this movie. I just love this movie. I love everything about it. One of my favorite, probably my favorite Clint Eastwood line of all time, and there's quite a few in all of his movies, his Dirty Harry movies, etc., etc. But my favorite all-time Clint Eastwood line, there's a scene now towards the end of the movie where a couple of bounty hunters have tracked him into this abandoned saloon area, and one of them, well, he kills one. He kills the first one, and the second one then comes in. The second bounty hunter comes in, and there you see Josey Wales just in the shadows in the corner of this saloon, and the bounty hunter says, "You know, I had to come back." And Josey Wales says, "You know, we don't have to do this." And the bounty hunter says, "Fellas got to make a living somehow." And Josey Wales says, "Dying ain't much of a living, boy." God, I love that line. So, that might be my new catchphrase for this channel. Dying ain't much of a living, boy. Somehow when I say it, it doesn't have the same oomph that it does when Clint Eastwood says it, right? So, Outlaw Josey Wales, number 2 favorite Western of all time. Really, really love it. It may not be one that are real familiar with. It's not one of his greater known roles, but to me, it may be my favorite Clint Eastwood movie of all time. And so, what is number 1? Give me another drum roll, please. I'm not hearing you do it. Come on. Mercy, do it. Okay. Number 1 favorite Western movie of all time is the classic Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, starring Robert Redford and Paul Newman. I have probably seen this movie 50 times in my lifetime, and I'm still not sick of it. I remember seeing it as a young lad in a movie theater one Saturday, and went with one of my neighborhood pals. And we used to ride our bikes and stuff together, through the neighborhood. And we would see this movie together. And before you knew it, he and I became Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid through our neighborhood. Our bicycles became our horses. We each had cap guns and all that stuff, which, of course, you'd be arrested if you were a kid and tried to play with a toy gun in the neighborhood now. But anyways... and if you remember, there's a very famous scene where they jump off the cliff in the water into the river to escape the bounty hunters that are chasing after them in this movie. And my friend had at his house kind of sat on a hill, and on one side of it there was this brick retaining wall that was probably about 5 or 6 feet high. But when you're 9, 10 years old, and 6-foot wall is pretty high, and we used to have a blast. We would reenact the jumping into the river scene off that 6-foot high retaining wall. It was grass at the bottom of it, so but dirt underneath the grass. So we had to be careful how we jumped and landed. I think I remember twisting an ankle or two doing that. But then we'd be back on our horses, our Schwinn horses, and taking off again, playing Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Just a beautiful movie. Of course, the Newman and Redford chemistry works fantastic in this, as well as it does in their follow-up movie, The Sting, both of which are fantastic movies. What needs to be said about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? I'm sure most everybody has seen this movie and seen it multiple times. Just a beautiful movie from start to finish. I love at the very beginning how it goes from that sepia kind of coloring, giving it that Western feel, and then about 5 minutes into the movie, after Butch rescues Sundance from the poker game and all that stuff, they make their way back into the canyon where the hole in the wall gang is hiding out, and the film slowly begins to fade from that sepia westerny looking color into full color. And that's just a classic moment, a great moment. But there's just so many memorable scenes and memorable lines. of course, the classic ending when they are in Brazil, and of course the real Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. There's still a lot of controversy as to whether they actually died in Brazil as the movie portrays. Of course, a lot of people subscribe to that theory, but I've read stories where Butch Cassidy's sister later claimed that Butch survived that and was later back in the States and died an old man. So I've also heard the same thing about Billy the Kid. So, you know, who knows? No one by this point has ever been able to verify one way or the other. But this movie portrays the classic interpretation of Butch and Sundance dying in Brazil. And of course you have that great final death scene at the very last shot of the movie that still to this day is very haunting. And I don't know that there's ever been two outlaws that have been as beloved as Butch and Sundance are on film. Yeah, they were criminals and robbers and all that stuff, thieves, but they, you know, were just portrayed so well and so lovingly in this movie that it is no wonder it is my favorite Western of all time. It's probably, definitely in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I never get tired of watching Butch and Sundance, and can quote probably 75 to 80% of the dialogue in this movie word for word as it goes along. So I love it. So that wraps it up, my top 5 list with a couple of honorable mentions as well as my favorite Western movies. So leave your comments below. Let me hear from you. What are your top 5? What do you like about this list? What do you not like about this list? I'd love to hear from you and see which ones you agree with, which ones you don't agree with. It's all subjective. These are my personal favorite ones. These are the ones that I would watch over and over and over again. I would say all of these in the top 5 I've probably seen at least bare minimum 5 times each, and I would probably say more than that, but that's a pretty safe guesstimate, 5 times each. So that's a pretty good sign that you really like a movie. And so there you go. As usual, thanks for watching. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe and see all the fun stuff that we do here at Collector of Stuff, please do so. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.